Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Gateway. I am your host, Alisha Braché, and I'm joined with two very, very special souls with me right now. I'm joined with Rebecca Rose and Hamish Bart. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's so nice to be here with both of you tonight. Yeah.
This is this is going to be an interesting video. So fasten your seatbelts, sit in, get a cup of tea or coffee or water, and just journey with us, as uncomfortable as it may be. Journey with us. If you have to pause, come back, then do what you need to do. But please, I thank you in advance for journeying with us. This video will be talking to the hearts of every soul, the heart of our child, our inner child. And I want to bring up a topic that's very dear to my heart around the children. That's been such a big part of this great awakening, is save the children. And I've had some very interesting insights over the last few weeks of, we're all so focused on saving the children in the tunnels and all that. And I was like, what if that was all of us? I mean, hypothetically, what if we all had some sort of level of being involved in being in underground bases or cages? And it's a hard pill to swallow, because the focus, and look, I believe, and I've always said this, when the darkness of what has been done to children on this planet finally comes to light and we heal as a collective, that is like that is the key point that will flip and change into a new earth, a new world, a new reality, home, whatever you want to call it, many names, many labels. But that is the shift in consciousness that I think we're all working towards. And it starts within our own inner child. So that's my intro. Go for your life. Open forum.
I'm just sitting with that, Alisha, because I think it is powerful, and it brings us into the child aspects that we all are kind of have our own children, right? I work with inner child stuff with my clients, and have done a ton of that on my own. So that's also another aspect of the, if you like, the Save the Children theme. Yeah. And I feel like too, a lot of that is, how do I say, is it, I don't think we're where we were with the things are getting better. I feel like that so much. I mean, I think you guys probably, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
A lot of cleanup happening. I mean, a lot of cleanup has been happening for a long time, but I think we're at like very pivotal cleanup points around that aspect of the children, the inner child. Yeah. And
yeah, I feel that too. Just intuitively, psychically, and also some of the things that have gone on in space for a long time, I think have really transitioned. Sometimes I even think, like, do I even keep talking about my SSP stuff? Like, is this even relevant? I mean, I think it is ultimately, because people need to know what's gone on here on this planet and the full breadth and depth of the duplicity and the harm, as well as all the lighter things and the ET alliances that are favorable, and the higher tech and these things. But yeah, I think we're quite at a tipping point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the energetic cleanup had to get to a certain point before the physical cleanup, whatever that means, could start, because no one would have been ready for it otherwise. Like, it'd just be cognitive dissonance. It'd break you wide open if you hadn't emotionally and energetically got to the place where you could even imagine handling some of the stuff that's gone on, or some of the some of the beings or the people that have been involved.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a big one, I think, for when you look out at the sea of people that are willing or getting willing and ready to look at this as a topic or a subject.
Mm.
There's always like caveats. There's always, well, yeah, but there's the good guys, or yeah, but there's the white hats, or yeah, but there's the, and it's like, look, yes, but you're going to find out that, like we know with the secret space programs, even the quote unquote good guys are slaving children and doing horrendous things, because that's just what we need to do to win the war. And it's like, no, you can't. The end will never justify the means. And we've been eyeballs deep in world reality, whatever you want to call it, where it seems like everyone is trying to tell themselves that the end will justify the means, and it just can't work that way. If you use distorted means, then your end will be distorted. You will never
Yeah.
get to where you're meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're still here. That's why we're going around in circles. I mean, and perhaps the players who are involved don't see that, because they're totally convinced that the end will justify the means. But the energies behind that, the entities, the ones who are kind of pulling the levers behind, they absolutely know that distorted means will bring you distorted ends. And that's why they're pushing it so much, because whilever you're doing that, you just keep looping around and around in
Yeah.
this cycle of distortion.
And I feel that that can also be applied to one's personal, like spiritual journey and personal awakening. Like if we're spiritually bypassing our own stuff,
Yeah.
bring that back, little Alicia, like that. Like if we're bypassing shadow material,
Yeah.
you know, it is going to produce distorted results. You know, you know, humans are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and that's normal for all of us. But, you know, there's so much. I mean, there's so many beautiful things that are happening with people's inner. I mean, all three of us are working with other folks. I think, Hamish, you are as well.
Yeah.
So we see what the progression that's happening in client sessions and the amazing journeys people are actually making. So I want to also acknowledge that too. But just to corroborate, you know, on what you shared about the distorted means, distorted ends, like all of us being clean and clear on our path and doing our best with our own self to be gentle and tender with ourselves too, as we do our deep dives, and reap the rewards, the all the beautiful gems and diamonds of personal growth.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can't even follow that up, Hamish. I'm just taking in what you two have just said. So much I want to express. I'm like, oh.
But I mean, what you brought up, Rebecca, is so true, because like the sessions that like all my sessions have been like that, but the sessions in the last little bit that I've been doing are just glorious. Like they really are. The people who I'm working with are having amazing beneficial changes at all levels of their life, and it's nothing to do with me. Like I'm not doing the work at all. Like I'm just holding the space for them to do the work.
We just do that.
Yeah, we're just doing this, right? They're doing all the heavy lifting, and they're doing it, and they're getting to places that they could never imagine that they could have got to, and it is glorious to see. And that is how we get they're the coherent means that we use to get to a coherent end, is by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to say something, Rebecca?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Alisha, you've been
I can share a common theme that has come through pretty much every session this week. And maybe it's really important to share for people who may be watching this that might have an inkling that that's what's going on. So it's very multi-layered. It is going back to the fetus at 3 months. I can't think of the word, in the womb. 3 months, what's the word?
Gestation.
Oh, the first trimester or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within the first trimester. And it's this energetic overlay of distortion that is in the womb that comes
Mhm.
in, and it's like this black goo, distorted, and it's energetic, right? But then it impacts our physical body, impacts our emotional, mental, all of that. And it's intergenerational. So I'm looking at, on average, it's 4 generations back on both paternal and maternal side. It is
Mm-hmm.
connected to our soul lineage because there's a deep
Mm-hmm.
tie into where we've come from that we're trying to close out the cycle of. And so it's like the 3 components, and it's like this 3-month-old beautiful fetus that has already come in distorted, but there's a light inside. And the 2 components that set that free is the stomach, the solar plexus, reclaiming the power, knowing your worth, knowing your value, taking guided action
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, for what you truly desire. There's the desire component in the sacral. So it's like a lot of people have had their sacral shut down because of sexual distortion in all the
Totally. Ding, 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 ding.
All
Yeah.
people, all people.
all people,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the base of being in scarcity and poverty consciousness, and
Yeah.
and having to run the rat race to actually survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the key that unlocks is the throat, speaking your truth, honesty, integrity, authenticity, and expressing
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
the things that you don't even want to say to yourself, let alone share that with someone else, especially someone who's really close.
Yeah.
So that's my overview.
Oh, so and you're saying, just to clarify, that you are observing this a lot, like as the common themes that we see in client sessions. That's what your keynote is, I think, right now.
That's
Yeah.
the week that's been so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were speaking about the fetus, I've been doing a lot of, I'm really into like getting into the shadow stuff and the subconscious to kind of reclaim ourselves. And I've been doing some research on the unconscious, between the years of 0 and 3, and we could include gestation inside of this. That's very much connected to the unconscious rather than the subconscious. Just from what I've been reading and looking into and studying, I think that's really interesting when you talk about distortion in the womb. How does that relate to collective unconscious and what we're all carrying, right? That's pretty deep, and to get into that, it's really rich and fascinating to me, and also it's devious and horrible, but it's also like, I always feel like we humans come here with infinite resources to undo what's been done, and that's what we're here for now. So I find that actually deeply inspiring. This is why we don't, most of us don't remember much before the age of 3. So it's just an interesting thread suddenly in my mind about, wow, like think about how we're all dialed into the collective unconscious before we kind of individuate more and kind of start doing our own thing with we're rattling around in our own subconscious after maybe the age of 3, and we start remembering things. And again, that word individuation, tying into integrity, authenticity, and these things that we're all going back into as well. Then that authenticity, like fidelity to self, is a theme that's been coming up forever in my sessions. Like, of course, to be awake and not asleep at the wheel of our lives right now. Of course, that's super important. And to be true to oneself and like figuring out where am I out of alignment with myself, my highest self. And we've all been so conditioned. Classical conditioning has made sure that we are all like afraid to become our most true self. Right. Like think about, like for myself, whenever I stepped off the pier and thought, oh my God, do or die, like I'm going to come forward with this totally insane story that I was on Mars and like I was in the Kuiper Belt and like, what? Way to shoot yourself in the foot in your life, Rebecca. But I knew like I had to do it. I knew I had to do it and there would be no turning back. And boy, am I glad I did that, even though, I've certainly, I've lost a lot of people, but anyway. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It makes me think of you said the throat and speaking your truth, and makes me think of the story that is stuck in my head about someone who's been with the guru for a while, and I forget who it was now, but he's about to leave and he'll be gone for a long time, and he says, what do I need to know? What should I? And he says, what you need to remember is to love everyone and tell the truth. And he said, but what if the truth is that I don't love everyone? And he said, well, then you need to love everyone and tell the truth.
Mm.
I was like, yeah, if the truth is that you don't love everyone, then what the fuck? Like, get your shit together. Why don't you love everyone? Like, chase that. What's going on in you? Like, there's something like, because you need
Well,
truth.
the big answer there is that we don't love ourselves. So
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
it. And you
That's
can't find that really until someone kind of pushes you in that direction of, well, why not? You're like, oh, I don't know, like, and then you go down the rabbit hole and off you go. But it's like one of those exercises of, love everyone and tell the truth. If you can't do that, why can't you do that? And what's the block? What's stopping you there? Is it even you?
It's interesting. I think it wraps us around back to the inner child self, and that, of course, I'm gonna, like the programming thing, and like we're again classical conditioning, and how we all know this. We're raised to think that we're not good enough, and that there's something wrong with us, or we're defective, and we're not enough. So of course, like, isn't that? I mean, it sounds so simple to talk about, like, oh yeah, to come into caring for yourself and being kind to yourself and gentler with yourself and tender with yourself. To have, like Alisha said, the solar plexus and knowing your worth. But that's such a journey for so many of us to
Yeah.
reframe all the programming we've been given. Yeah. It's beautiful though. I think, like we said, I mean, so many people are doing this work now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having flashbacks. It's coming through. Rebecca and Hamish are my healers, my support team. I go to them and they support me, and I'm very, very grateful, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the two of you. So to do this recording is like extra special to talk about this topic. And I was like, in March last year, I was absolutely incapacitated, and poor Rebecca had to sit on Zoom with me, just like the tears and because it was around that masculine, it was around that solar plexus, and trying to reignite. I was broken. I was very broken. I was very lost and confused and feeling helpless. And Rebecca guided me about trying to reconnect with the warrior within me. And that took a while.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, it's a journey of maybe lifetimes for us, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you connect with the warrior, and then the warrior you connect with is the one who's committing war crimes, and you're like, oh shit, we don't want to talk to that one. We need to tidy that up a bit.
Oh gosh, and I have some new SSP memories that are me as a bad guy, through my programming of anyway, blah blah blah. Wow, sorry, that just flashed on me. Yep, that warrior, super soldier stuff. Yeah, yeah, but the tenderness of the warrior and the vulnerability of the warrior and the like, Alisha, you just modeled something beautiful there in talking about this vulnerable place on your own journey. A lot of people who think like we as healers or helpers or whatever don't have shit, right? Like, come on, we're all here on humble human journeys, and that is what I always try and bring to my own recordings of, like, oh my gosh, that we, we're all supporting each other. We're all modeling hopefully modeling something. To me, like that word vulnerability, tenderness is so important in how we become. To me, that's how I become a warrior. Like that's such beautiful medicine that's connected to the heart. So there's like I would say the solar plexus power reclamation, but also the wisdom that's inside becoming a true warrior is connected to these sort of softer elements, and then the reunion of the masculine and feminine perhaps inside of that also. Yeah,
I was going to tie that in because I remember doing a session on someone who's very close to me, almost 2 years ago to the day almost. And I saw all this beauty. I saw Lyra. So that was a piece of the puzzle that was missing for me, because the very first session Rebecca did, she said, if you want to mend the broken heart and the separation of betrayal, loss, and love in this lifetime, you have to go back to the cosmic womb, go back to Lyra, go back to Lyra. And Rebecca, it took me a while, but I got there. And I love how
I remember that session. That was powerful. Yeah.
I still listen to the recording, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the session that it just keeps on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it took a long time for me to, well, it was all in perfect timing, but I feel that a lot of the times our deep soul connections will come in at the most perfect time to give us that peace and be the mirror to help our process of healing and integration and ascension. And so that peace came to me in a physical manifestation of a form of a person. And I did a session, and I saw, for the first time, I saw the Lyra experience through that other person. And it was breathtaking, to the point where it was so magnificent. I couldn't even look at it. It was so shiny, and I realized that I couldn't even look at it. And then that's how, and I saw within the energetic structure of that person that there was a code that held universal, I don't know, memory. I don't know what it was a code. And I saw all the crap around it that had been built up over lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And what it was doing was trying to clear so that that code could be reignited, and the magnificence of that really pure divine masculine that is authentic, that is vulnerable, to really embody. And I've watched that process not only with that person, but through the collective experience and my own. And I feel like where people are at, right, they've cleared so much that they're just waiting for the activation of that code within their solar plexus to come online.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you say. You're the part you talked about, like with the session that we did about going back into the like the womb of, the beginning of time, Lyra, and the cosmos, the cosmic rebirth, in a way. Maybe it's tying in again to if we take it back to what you were observing of like duplicity, or so in the gestation period, really like journeying back into the point of conception, or even quite beyond. In fact, like those journeys are so powerful, as far as like we could say a kind of soul retrieval. I mean, we call it inner child work, but I think all the inner child work is actually soul retrieval work. So yeah, I think I've journeyed back, through meditation, and I was kind of purifying the whole. I think it's going back to our choice point and remembering who we are and why we came here. In that moment of conception, so much is happening, right? Like we're coming in, and at the same time, is there this little forgetting piece? Oh shit, that, and then and then there's so much remembering, and there's the potential, the aliveness of potential that exists right there. It's like touching that space, which is touching the cosmos, which is touching the universe and all the wisdom we've ever been given, right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and retrieving those bits, those pieces, like going back, and because you can't, probably because it's too much to hold at once. I don't know, or
even just a conversation, I'm like, whoa, I can feel.
Yeah, because we're not used to holding it all at once. I mean, we know we can hold it all at once because we did, but we're out of practice, and so we've got to go back and retrieve little bits of it, a piece or two at a time. But then as we retrieve it, then we've got to clean it up because it's all covered in crud and stuff. So it's like,
innocence is there. Innocence is there.
It is, but it feels painstaking to start with. Like when you first start, it is quite painstaking.
I feel that it's going back to a pre-verbal place. Like it's overwhelming when we think about it with our linear cognitive analytical mind. It just blows to shit. But then if we go into something that is into the liminal space of the quantum field, then, kind of pausing the, stuff up here, the adult mind, and maybe something else enters, which is more experiential and somatic and kind of hard to put language around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's not that it feels overwhelming or like I said, painstaking. It's that thinking about it feels overwhelming.
Yeah, thinking about it just kind of hurts. Right?
Yeah, but if you don't think about it and you just kind of jump in and start doing it, then all of a sudden you're doing it and it's no problem. But like you said, Rebecca, you've really got to disengage the brain mind from that operation altogether and just go with other parts of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just flashed on being in a, like, if you think about it from our adult perspective now, thinking about going into a womb in this darkness where I can't, who am I connecting with? What's happening there? I feel suddenly frightened of that. Like, it just doesn't sound appealing. And yet at the same time, it's got to feel like the most nurturing, yummy experience we could really have. Like, we're connected to the mother. Hopefully your mother's, hopefully she's doing okay. Transmitting good things. Could be some distortion there. In my case, there was certainly a lot. And then the Greys came in and they were tampering with me. But it's an interesting. Anyway, I'm doing some of my own processing aloud here. Sorry, you guys go ahead.
No, it's good.
Keep processing out loud, Rebecca. I love it. This is what we're here for.
Because it's that idea of like float tanks. Like people are kind of almost freaked out by the idea of doing a float tank. And then when they finally, exactly. But then when they finally do it, it's like instantly addicted to it. And they're like, when can I go back? Can I get my own? Where do I get all the magnesium from to do the like they're like, I need more of this. I need a lot more of this.
Oh, interesting. So Alisha, you got something on. What do you got to say on that?
Oh no, someone gifted me a float tank and I think it was a 12-month voucher and it took me 12 months. It was almost expired before I got in the door.
Oh, interesting. Because it's sensory deprivation, right?
Yeah. Blocked ears, blocked eyes, and
it sounds lovely.
And in like so there's a little cocoon, so it's like all black on the inside and salt water, like high level magnesium water, so you're kind of floating.
Oh, that feels really. I'm just kind of feeling that. Yeah, too, empathically kind of going there. It feels like really nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You guys, that's why I live in Alaska. It's like the womb of darkness up here. It's minus 1,000,000 degrees out, and it's like this behind me. It's like there's something really nurturing about it. People are like, "How do you live up there?" It's crazy. You're like just below the Arctic Circle, but there's something. It's like journeying back all winter long into again that like pre-verbal place where we have so much wisdom. Anyway, just a little tangent on that. It's like the womb.
And the pre-verbal bit it's very important. I think the pre-verbal bit, I mean, we know we can all communicate without words, like even if we're not going to talk about telepathically communicating with someone in another room or on the other side of the city or the world, like body language and energy and all sorts of stuff, like you can convey what your heart means, even if you can't convey what your brain's going totally mental with at the time. But like the idea of trying to put words to things just totally shortcuts all of these, especially with English, because English it's not like Welsh, it's not like Japanese, it hasn't got all the, or Old Hungarian, hasn't got all these beautiful words that mean the longing for home that you can never see again. Like that's a word in some of these languages. Like we don't have anything like that. So
we lack the nuance, right? That's such a good point. And often I find myself even in client sessions or in interviews or something like, okay, where's my other, light language or something that isn't moored, like we're saying, to the conscious mind. And
talking to the subconscious, talking to the unconscious, talking to the heart, not talking to the mind at all, like just talking to the heart instead, or directly to the body. Yeah, it's a important I feel like in sessions, especially, and which means in real life, like in walking around day-to-day life, because it's just a reflection of what we're doing. Like the presence that you're bringing to a session with your body language and your frequency, whatever that is, and not the word, not it's not even the words you're saying, but the way you're saying the words, the way you're allowing them to float out there. I mean, that's the important bit, because that's the bit that allows things to unpack. That's what allows the intimacy, and it kind of rolls back to that idea of the intimacy and the warrior and the, because if you like, nothing is stronger than being totally intimate, like no holds barred, 100%, all the dirty washing out on the line, that intimate, because there's nothing to hide. Like you're like, I'm actually strong enough that I don't care who knows what about me. That's how strong I am. I can be that intimate with everyone. And that's it's a power play, but not from an ego point of view. It's a power play from a really open, vulnerable heart space.
The heart, that's the heart. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh, this is a rich theme around healing our intimate relationships. You know, our of course, beginning with the relationship with self, because there's no real intimacy with another. I feel if I can't be intimate with myself and in right relationship with me, there's not going to be anything else in a co-creative way with somebody else. And that's a big pivot point, because we all have been, again, conditioning with so much fear around relating, being vulnerable, letting other people in, trust wounds. Look at the SSP community, massive trust wounds, betrayal, abuse, like programming around, distortion of what's pleasurable and what's painful, and the flipping of those two, and blah, 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 all this stuff. So it's massively distorted. Alisha, on our last talk for your channel, we talked about the sexual distortions, but also the piece around intimacy. And as long as, talk about, okay, the children being the link to flipping the frequency on this planet. Also our intimate relationships across the board, a relationship period being the also another big piece of that. So thanks for kind of bringing that back to my awareness, Hamish.
Yeah, that's so important, and somewhere where I kind of wanted to go down to, because back a few moments ago, it reminded me of how in my close personal intimate relationship, that was a catalyst that I'd already, people want to know about my SSP story, and I haven't really revealed much, and I will in due course. I'll share bits and pieces that I didn't come into conscious memory of it till 2020, and that, and that's when I connected with Rebecca and made some beautiful friendships along the way. But it was until a close personal intimate relationship actually came into my life was the catalyst for, like, I was like good with my SSP stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm good here. But coming into a strong, powerful connection just erupted so much more, that so many layers of dark, really traumatic memory to surface. And that has been the cornerstone of why a lot of what I do. And it was really about memories of myself seeing some horrific things in underground bases as a small child. And the fact that I feel like this, when I speak of my own journey, I speak for the collective, because what came up for me was that my voice was taken. I was silenced because I was traumatized. And the most important thing we can do is reclaim our voice and speak and share our truth. And that is a game changer for intimate relationships. And that's been a big lesson for me, is to always speak my truth and be in integrity, even if it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt yourself or the other. Eventually, it's actually going to put you on the right course, even if it means like wobbling and disconnecting and tantrums and all the human stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, because it's coherent means, isn't it? Like it's gonna be messy, probably because of what happened in the past that was distorted and not coherent. So to unwind it is going to be messy, but truth is coherent. And so if you're using coherent means, then whatever you're getting to is going to be coherent, no matter what it looks like and we know looks are deceiving. Like it can look any way it looks, but I mean, earning the good income and having the money in the bank and owning the house and the 2 cars and all the stuff and the trophy spouse and the children, and that looks like the dream, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
looks are deceiving. So it's not about that at all. It's about what's the energy underneath that. And so speaking your truth can be horrific to some people around you, and even to you. You're like,
yeah.
did I just say that?
Yeah.
But if you're after coherence, which is truth, then it's necessary.
Yeah. Yep. There's so many places I could go.
Yeah, in that little moment, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that comes back to the children. And when I say the children, I mean inner child as well, like us, me. That's the grab point for distortion, because you're getting something that's perfectly vulnerable and perfectly intimate and perfectly open, and you're going to stomp on it and pour crude oil all over it and trash it with and feed programs into it, and none of that actually matters. Like trauma, I mean, and this is what I'm seeing, the more and more work I do, trauma is like this like leech. It's like a limpet that just sits on the outside of you. Like it's not you at all. It's this experience that you went through. And it can cause suffering if you choose to view it in a certain way, which, especially if there's pain involved, it usually does, but it doesn't have to. And it's like, what was the point of the trauma though? The point of the trauma was to get you to feel that being intimate and being vulnerable and being open is a mistake, and you should never ever do that, because if you do, it will hurt a lot, and you'll get others hurt around you, and all of that stuff that we've all gone through, whether we remember it or not, as a child, at school, in the kindergarten, in SSP, at training, at like whatever level it's at, all of this trauma training is through everything that we're involved in at the moment. And it's all about, it is dangerous and painful to you and everyone you love around you if you are intimate, open, and vulnerable. Don't do that. And it's a lie. It's a total lie.
Oh, don't do that, Hamish.
Don't do that.
That's why would you do
Bad.
that?
We shouldn't do that.
Bad. Because I mean, if you do that, you might actually get everything that you really want. And that perfect house and the car and the kids and the perfect life. If you speak your truth, you might actually get all that, but in the right way.
Yeah, if that's what you want. Yeah. Yeah. What will happen is, if you remain intimate and open and truthful and not distorted, you will remain in your power. And no one can fuck with you when you're in your power. Like they could hurt you, they could physically destroy you. There's lots of things that could happen to you, but they can't actually mess with you, like who you actually are, as long as you're staying in your power and getting the real you, like whoever you are behind your eyes, like the spirit, that one, getting you to kind of shut down who you are and back off and just let the autopilot program run and drop into the system. And that's what all of this is about. So from that point of view, they, like the elusive they only win if we do that. So just don't do that. Just stay vulnerable, stay open, stay in your heart as much as possible, and stay truthful.
100%. And what I've learned is the thing that we fear the most, the thing that makes us the most uncomfortable to do, to action, is generally what we need to do. And I've learned that over my life of like, oh, I don't want to have that conversation with that person, or I don't want to say that, or I don't want to rock the boat, or all that, oh, I don't want to do that. And I know when there's resistance there, it's the thing I should do. And so I got to the point where I clocked that the thing that I was being told in my mind was telling me, don't do that. that's the thing I should do.
Because that's the program trying to protect itself.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point where I clocked that, because then when you do the thing that you don't want to do, you push through the resistance, what I call the breakdown to breakthrough moment, where you move through that threshold, and like everything that's waiting for you on the other side is magnificent. So I got to the point where I was like, here we go again. Rip it off like a band-aid. This one's going to hurt, but it's going to be amazing on the flip side. Let's go.
And it gets easier. It gets easier. It's like exposure work, like you do like little bits. Or maybe for you, you do like big things at once, but it gets easier as you go. Like that's those steps into one's authenticity and, like we're saying, our truth, our unique truth. It gets easier as you go. Yeah. And because the reward is so vast, like you are also saying, Alisha, yeah, it's definitely like the carrot at the end of the stick. Like, oh, I like that feeling. Woo! Yeah. Oh, it's bracing, but I like it. Yeah. 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 It can be so exhilarating to become very authentic, right? That's my observation, my experience of that, just from my end. As also Alisha, you know, somebody who was extremely silenced, and like all my natal family stuff, and just like everything, you know. I mean, we all probably experience some level of that, right? So it's we don't know that there's another way to be, or like I didn't know for a long time that there was any other option. I'm still coming out of that. You know, it's okay to be seen. It's okay to have a voice. It's okay to step out into the limelight and tell whatever story, you know, you got to tell, or whatever it is, or hold space for somebody else to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is maybe not so conventional, or, you know, thwarting the conventional narrative. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay to not be normal. And the more people you talk to, the more you realize no one's normal. It just isn't a normal.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And I look at like how many, you know, clients have I seen over the years, like, oh yeah, nobody's really normal.
No
I
one's
mean, of
normal.
course it's a you know, a biased demographic.
True. That, yeah,
Surely,
there is
perhaps,
that.
yeah, it's a good point. And do you feel that, what's your perspective? I kind of am under a little rock in that I don't look at a lot of mainstream stuff. I'm a busy lady. I don't spend tons of time online. But as far as people being receptive to the SSP information, I kind of feel like, do you feel like that's shifting? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We both know with a smile on our face. I'll just chime in quickly, Hamish, and I'll let you go. When I came into my memories, I knew it was true. I always knew it was true. And there's so much deliberate cognitive dissonance, deliberate psyop to make people believe that it's absolute BS and that it's like too outrageous. I believe this. I'm going to throw this out there. I believe it's possible that every true human being, organic human being here on this planet is involved and has been. And I remember saying this to you, Rebecca, like years ago. I said to you, you can't unsee. Once you see, you can't unsee. And I said to you, I'm trying really hard not to look at every person I interact with an SSP filter.
Oh God.
Stop it.
Yeah, wow.
But when you kind of break it out a bit, because the language, science fiction, which is SSP, right? In a way, like that science fiction language, the SSP language, was one that I could talk very easily. I read a lot of hard science fiction as a child, like from the 50s and 60s, which is just solid disclosure of what's going on, like so in your face, not even funny. But that kind of geek language, that it was a bit alienating. Whereas the mythical language of, you know, the Egyptian myths or the Roman myths or the Norse myths or the Chinese myths, that's a lot more, or the European myths for that matter, they're a lot more all-encompassing. The Indigenous Australian myths, the Indigenous South American myths, a lot of different African stuff, and it's all the same stories. And because, you know, we're talking about humans and we're talking about the other beings and we're talking about energetics. And so it doesn't matter what culture you're in or what, they're the same stories. And so I was using a lot of mythical metaphors to get a point across, or to try and get people to look in a certain direction, or invite them to look in a certain direction. And the more I played with that, the more I realized that, you know, the Star Wars, Star Trek, SSP, hard science fiction stories, they are the myths. They're the same. We're talking about military style organizations. We're talking about hybrid breeding programs.
Yes.
Talking about
Totally.
off-world
Oh my God.
beings. Where
Yeah.
it is, and it's like, yeah, but there's no rocket ships and there's no this and that, and it's like, yeah, but that could be window dressing. Like, there's still vehicles, right? You read all that Indian stuff, they're still talking about Vimanas, they're still talking about sky chariots, they're still
Sky
like,
chariots.
you
Yes.
know, it's all the same stuff. And so it doesn't really matter where you try and look. A lot of the idea that all real heart-centered, spirited and souled beings here have been involved in these programs to some degree or other. Like, I would actually say the idea that they haven't been involved is more far-fetched than the idea that they have, because it is literally everywhere. It's everywhere. And the semi-indoctrinated military style of running things is also literally everywhere. Look at hospitals, look at schools, look at libraries. Like, everything is organized on this hierarchical, oh yeah, well, it's just the Napoleonic War and it was just a really easy way of running things, and so we just did it everywhere. Like, bullshit. It's just, it doesn't work for me. I'm just looking at it going, these programs permeate everything and everyone. And you don't need to resonate, I don't think, with the SSP particularly, or going to Mars or going to an asteroid or being on ships, or I don't think you need to resonate with that to uncover things that need uncovering and healing, or just things that are a bit distorted in you that could become coherent. Like, it doesn't need to come through that lens, because look at all these other lenses we've got in our world that we can view quite easily and go, they're talking about the same shit we're talking about.
Thank you, Hamish. And I just want to put in there, because a lot of people don't resonate with giant spiders on Mars, or, you know, things that are very strongly resonant, that is part of interwoven into my story and Rebecca's, you know, and that's where we have that bond, because we connect on that level. But that's not everyone's storyline. And when I did the SSP series with Rebecca and Daryl James and Tony Rodriguez like 12 months ago, the whole point that I was trying to cast out is that it doesn't matter, like, it's the soul's journey, and we're talking about trauma, ancestral, we're talking about soul lineage, we're talking about healing that, and we're talking about fractal of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, and that it's going to look like different for everyone. So you don't have to resonate with like the horrific satanic ritual abuse, although that could be a lot of people's storyline. Or you don't have to resonate with being cloned, being, you know, a cyborg. That could be, but it may not be. It may just be that you had trauma. Somehow your consciousness is fractaled, and there are aspects of you multidimensionally that are doing all sorts of things.
Yep.
And what we're trying to do is actually heal our body so we can incorporate all that consciousness back into us. That is the ascension.
Yeah.
When we can all do that, the planet.
What I've noticed, just in my own little bubble, what I've noticed is people who don't like the hard science fiction, like space and the spaceships and that idea, like whatever shape or cosmology we're going to say this world is that we're on, like that storyline, spiders on Mars, cyborgs, all that stuff. People that don't resonate with that.
Morning, I healed my phobia with spiders and snakes. Anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that. What you'll find is it's not that they don't want to consume that information. Like they wouldn't sit through a movie, they wouldn't read a book. It's that they can't. Like they absolutely, if you put on like Starship Troopers or Edge of Tomorrow or anything like that that's just like hardcore in your face, they would have to get up and leave the room. That's trauma. Where did the trauma come from?
Oh, yeah. I can speak directly to this. For the most of my life until about 2 years ago, I would never watch any sci-fi. Or my brother and my father were super into sci-fi.
Hmm.
And I was like, ugh. I was very like violently opposed to it when I was a kid, right? And then I only watched like the original Star Wars from 1977. I only watched in 2022. Like, right? So like I'd never seen this stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this is totally my experience in the program. So I was not front loaded with any sci-fi.
Yep.
But that's so interesting. And I recognize like, oh, why? Because like you just said, bang, bang, bang. It's trauma. Like all my trauma is right here. Turn that stuff off. I can't watch this. And
Yeah.
I love it now. Like I watched the whole Star Wars, like the 9 episodes. I watched them like 3 times. And like, then I watched, what is it? The Mandalorian. And then I watched blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Yeah.
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 That's
But
a really good point. Yeah.
yeah, it's not that they don't like it. It's not that it's not their taste. Like I'm just not a rom-com guy. Like it's like, no. If I was to turn that on, you would physically have to leave the room because it's doing something to you. You just can't handle it. And that's a traumatic experience coming out. So that means
Or you fall asleep.
some part of you has been part of that.
What'd you say, Alicia?
I said, or you fall asleep. You try.
Or you fall asleep. Yeah, you
Fall
can't do
asleep.
it. Yeah.
I was going to add something else. This is a rich discussion. I also wanted to ask talk about it in the comments, people, if you think that, is the climate changing where the general population is becoming more readily receptive to SSP, the stories here. But what I was going to say is that I feel like, and observe that through my work with clients, that like sometimes some people are carrying like, we can carry things that are not necessarily, how do I say, like they're not specific to my own journey. Like I could be carrying something that belongs to the collective, because we get locked into this idea of but as I work with follow me out here for a minute. I work with my indigenous parents from another lifetime. They've done a lot of healing work for me. And mother always says, when it happens to one person in the tribe, it belongs to everyone. So therefore it becomes, I think I'm encapsulating, Hamish, what you have been saying, and Alisha, that it becomes our tandem journey, our collective journey, it's in us, like the burning times have been in us, right? Like whether or not you feel like you lived a particular lifetime there and you're carrying that, but it's in the this, like I would say, like in a kind of cellular memory kind of way, it's stored. At least for some of us. I think that's, again, we go back into the soul's purpose and what are we here to do. For some people, they have a really strong resonance with clearing shit out.
Yeah.
The term I use is epic transmuter.
Oh, fancy. Okay.
Yep.
I do believe that a lot of us have agreed to, as part of our experience down here, that we would go through our own stuff and do some heavy collective lifting in the process. And that's why sometimes it feels so debilitating. At least I can say from my own journey, I look back and I was like, I was clearing my stuff, but I felt like I had the weight of the world on me, or I was carrying the weight of the world.
You have a strong template, I feel, with that, of like clearing out a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff.
I think.
Good going. You signed up for the hero's journey.
Yeah. And I feel like it's probably because it's necessary. Like there's just so much, because it's like a shotgun loaded with rock salt. Like it's just like the trauma has just been spread so far and so wide that people aren't just going to be able to individually clean all of that up. It's not like there's some collective heavy lifting that needs to be done, and there are some people that are doing it. Now that's a trap in itself. That's a whole martyr journey, and you get so stuck doing that that you don't do your own work, like it's a slippery slope, and you've got to really watch yourself there and make sure you're not leaning too far one way or the other. But it is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a thing, and I agree with you, Hamish. Like, I've always been more outward focused. I have someone once recently told me that my soul is more masculine, and that just makes sense to me. It's just so the journey of becoming more integrated and balanced within my masculine has been huge. My focus is always do. And so it's like, this is for years, this is the collective, this is the collective. It took me a long time to actually go, oh, this is for me. However, what has come through in a lot of client sessions over the years is I have worked with so many people who are huge collective transmuters through their own, and they would come to me and say, why? This is so hard. This is so heavy. This is so dense. Why? And in the session, as Rebecca would know, when we're just sort of channeling the information, we just kind of, whatever comes out, we don't. But what repeatedly has come over is the why was, well, you have the capacity.
Yeah.
Your soul is so vast and so expansive and so experienced in transmutation.
Yeah.
That's why.
You're capable.
You're capable.
From that point of view, why not?
Yeah. That's well put. The soul's knowledge is infinite and quite eternal, I would say so. And that's a beautiful reminder that we contain all of that. So we get kind of stuck in our like limitations and stuff, our matrix doings and so on, and all the stuff.
The ideas of our limitations, or the thoughts about
the thoughts that we have are limited beliefs. Like I've been doing like really deep diving on like, what are my limited beliefs, and like we could say benevolent reprogramming around that, to reorient to the new belief that isn't necessarily based on fear, but more expansive, wherever I feel like I'm truncated in my life's expression, then that's the work it has been for me lately. Yeah. And some of that has been about like intimate relationship. Like this past year, Alisha knows this. We've talked at length and in depth about this, because all of my relationships, we're bringing this back to previous, part of our dialogue here tonight already around intimacy, and all of my, what were my attachment, what has my attachment system been based on? My natal programming with my mother, my father, extended family. There's so much abuse there that to be loved is to be abused. And so okay, this is deep and rich. And I'm really a geek about attachment theory and attachment, like healing the personal attachment system to become secure in our attachment so we can actually bond in a healthy way with other people and not having all these like trauma explosions through our intimate relationships and our friendships and everything else, or just isolating. So we're not, I've been a big isolator in my life. Like avoiding relationship of all kinds, not safe. And that's been really profound work for me. Very, very profound. I mean, it's humbling. It's very boots on the ground, 3D grit. It's not like up in the stars and this, that, and the other. It's very related to our human experience, but it's been very powerful and provocative and gorgeous. So, and it's leading me into good places in my own personal life. So plug on that little window on what my tender place is right now.
But that's the gold. Like that's been some of the beauty of the last few sessions that I've done, over the last little while, over the last few months, is exactly what you're talking about, Rebecca, is finding, rather than finding the trauma, finding the thing that someone did to you, finding that it's not about that, it's about that's all there, but finding the internal setting and dialogue that has been set up around that is putting you in a really bad place all the time, continually in this loop, and resetting that, like wiping the slate clean and reworking that to a place where it's going to put you in a good space. And people's lives just blossom when you can do that. And the trauma, the trauma's still there to be dealt with afterwards, but the trauma becomes totally secondary in a way, because like the trauma is almost impersonal. It was never about the trauma. It was about getting you to behave in a particular way. And the trauma was just the reinforcing.
Oh,
help.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Can I just I'm getting
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
now.
We're
We're talking about
going right guns here.
relationships,
Go ahead.
the restoration of the right relationship that has
Mm.
been in progress, and the beauty that I've witnessed because I work with counterparts and counterparts who are in the programs. And that's been my journey to realize that every counterpart that I've been partnered with this entire life was SSP related. And you look back and you go, oh, like that's a hard pill to swallow. Like we literally came in to do a job. We were messed with. There was so much interference.
Hmm.
And there was so much heartbreak. Like my book will be published soon. Soon. And I remember the last session I had with you, Rebecca, and I was like, oh, my book's getting there. It's getting there. It's such a birthing process. And Rebecca read the energy of my book, and your I don't know if you remember this, but your reaction was, oh, it's a crucible. And I was like, what do you mean? It's my story. I didn't even realize how traumatic my own story was because it's just my life.
Yeah, we don't.
Mm,
We
mm.
don't usually until
Yeah, without a
write it
frame
down
of
on paper.
reference or something. Yeah.
Exactly. You write it down on paper and look at it and go, that's not a life story. It's a fucking Greek tragedy. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therapeutic, though. I highly encourage anyone who has a book within them, even if it's just for themselves, to start writing, because so much healing came through. And it took me 7 years, and it's still not complete, but it's getting there. So much healing and so much missing pieces came through just in the process of writing. So it's yeah. But I want to talk okay. There's two topics I want to like explore, and then we can wrap up. I want to talk about counterparts in the program, because that's, I mean, I did that whole the archetypes of sacred relationship, which is based on my Elevate 2 training, teaching people that we have many different many different soul connections, and that it's soul lineage, but it's also very heavily SSP for some. For me, yes. Maybe not for everyone else, but I can honestly say that every significant relationship in my life, deep SSP.
Can I just add in here before we get like right into it that the CIA in the last 100 years, John Dee, apparently back when they were doing all that stuff in England, like Elizabethan England, the Romans, the Persians, and the Egyptians are all documented as using biological twins in military settings because of their specific abilities with each other. So why would the programs want energetic twins? Gee, I wonder. Yeah.
The soul signature is so much more powerful than biological twins.
Yeah, way more powerful.
Flames, original pairing, whatever label the one that has the same soul signature, or it's very, like, you have one, in my opinion, you have one that has the same soul signature, and you have one that has like almost the identical match, and so forth. And that's how the monadic structure of the soul group is created. And so if you could target all of them, and you have a relationship with all of them, and they fuck you over 10 times over, what are you going to do? You're going to go, you know what, relationships are too hard. I'm just going to be single for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because the biological twin is one thing, but when we talk about astral space or dream space, which is energetic space, right? They always, like they say, the rule of thumb is you are 7 times stronger in that space than you are in your physical, like at a minimum. And so an energetic twinning is going to be 7 times more telepathic, 7 times more empathic, like no brainer that you want to try and weaponize that if you're a distorted MFer.
That's interesting. We worked in a team, as I recall, a team that was often just 7 people on Mars doing recon and these things, psychic recon and other, kind of missions. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much in there. What this conversation is. Yeah, that's rich.
Well, I don't know why. I just want to bring up, if you can speak to it, both of you can speak to it, because Rebecca and I had a conversation yesterday, and I've had memories still keep coming up. I was obsessed with the name Rebecca when I was a child, and my dad was teaching me about the children in Montauk, and I just knew it in my heart. I don't know. I don't believe that Montauk was my journey, but I definitely have a resonance with children who were used in Montauk. And then Rebecca and I were talking, we're like, we've got to get Hamish to answer these questions, because the intake of the SSP, when you look at, like, I was born in the 80s, so I'm one sort of category. Whereas I know, and Hamish, I think you and I kind of fit into that 80s group. But I know, Rebecca, you're in like the 70s group.
Nope, 10 years older. Yep.
I'm
right. All right, thanks.
Although
True.
I feel like you're my, sister, but like you see, like I don't know how far back, well, it probably goes back to the 40s or anyway, but there's definitely the decade grouping, and then the tech that they were using, let's say in the 70s grouping, so that people who are in their sort of 50s ish around that, I think they used some really low grade yucky tech, and then they refined it so that the people in the 80s group, maybe the tech was a bit better, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, or this trying to understand, is like, I had this resonance with Montauk, Rebecca, and even though in linear time there's like an age gap between us in the programs, I feel like we serve together. And hey, and me and Rebecca were like, our human brain can't.
Yeah, the struggles with that. Yeah, but then like, if you were thinking about a 20 and back or a 40 and back kind of thing, or 30 and back or a 10 and back, but I'm going to say 20 because we're talking about decades apart. If let's just say one of you was finally grabbed at 10 or 12 in the 70s for a 20 and back, and the other of you was grabbed at 4 in the 80s for a 20 and back, like that's going to overlap, like without any spooky time travel, without any weird stuff, like just physically. I mean, the whole 20 and back has to have spooky time travel, of course, but physically, just that would overlap just all on its own, let alone I think specific people, like that time travel is a bit of an anomaly, like the way we think about it and the way we probably Doctor Who's a lot closer than anything else we think of, but like all we're shown about time travel. But I think that moving forward and backward through time is actually a lot, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's a lot more fluid and flexible than we think it is, especially when we're out in these other spaces that aren't in here,
totally.
in this pressure.
Yeah, as soon as we leave Earth's orbit, time is different. It's not. We're gone from this linear progression. It's not the same.
Yeah, and so things become very fluid, and not just time is different, but totally fluid. And so you could be having experiences with someone who was born in the 1860s out somewhere else. You have no idea. They have no idea. Like it's not that would be improbable at all. Like that would be totally possible for that to be happening if they were a specific being tasked for a specific thing, and so were you. You're going to get thrown together and you're going to get tasked to go and do that thing. And when you get wormholed into a place, like that can be time as well as space, because it has to be time. Like you can't get, if we're thinking there's any sort of linear distance between, let's say, us and Mars, or even better, us and Neptune, or I don't know, but like think of a place a long way away, traveling in linear time to get there would
Right.
would be
Exactly
a
my
long
position
time.
in the Kuiper Belt, like when I was owned by the Draco way out there. I mean, that yeah, my human mind can't conceive of how far that is. And that, I mean, it's our solar system, but
Yep.
it's so far out.
Yep.
This is where, yeah, the limits of human thinking on these things is really just turns
Exactly.
into
Because
nothing.
to get you to the Kuiper Belt and back again, you have to time travel for that to even work. Like, otherwise, unless they're going to freeze you and put you on ice, but by the time you get there, the thing they were sending you for doesn't, so it's got to be like an instantaneous thing. And if it's instantaneous, then it's, as far as we think of time here, that's time travel straight away. So
Mhm.
if you have the ability to do that somehow, then overlapping people time-wise, that's totally a thing. You probably just wouldn't do it because logistically it would be a bit of a pain in the ass. But if there was a payoff, you'd definitely do it.
If there's a payoff, they'll do it. They'll do
Yeah.
anything, and we all know that. Well, jump rooms, it's a kind of cross between. I mean, the jump room technology is like a compression of space and time, put in simple terms. As far as I look at it psychically, that's my understanding. So you could still be popping out at how do I say this? Oh, that language. Starting at this point in time and popping out not too far down the road from
Mm.
that point. But it's not quite like, I mean, certainly, yeah, the literal time travel of going back in time or to forwards into the future. There's so many different means. And then we could talk about all the things that went on for me at Montauk and the Silver Bullet and
Mm.
the torsion fields and the physics of that, electrogravitics and so on and so forth. I mean, like, it's really fascinating to me.
It is. It is.
It's really fascinating.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we get on this, we're like the simple question of Alisha and I, well, so how did that even overlap? I'm like, oh, the more we talk, the more it's like
Yeah.
everything goes on. I mean, and it makes it, I get where this is a hard pill to swallow for people who are new to the SSP thing. Like, how does that technology even work? Especially if they're not multidimensionally aware. It's
Mm.
a really hard sell for people who are just brand new and with it strictly landlocked in 3D in their minds. Of course, we all are until we're not, basically
Yeah.
because of our training, but it's really, really interesting and swimmy and very, very, very quantum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because then then you get the Russian scientist Kozyrev, who's making a spiral out of aluminium or whatever he made it out of. But basically, it's like just a tube that slightly spirals on this perfect and sitting people inside it. And they're having like telepathic abilities. They're moving stuff with their mind. They're going backwards and forwards in time. And like there's reports of, there's all sorts of weird reports about Kozyrev experiments. But one of them was a woman who was blonde went in there, she had grey hair and she was in there for 3 or 4 hours. And when she came out, her hair had turned blonde again. Like her body time traveled. Then the next time she
Yeah.
went in there with blonde hair, when she came out, her hair was black and it stayed black after that. She never had black hair. Like, like we can't explain this stuff with our mind, but I mean, there's literal paperwork and documentation of that stuff, and the Kozyrev mirrors are getting someone.
Right. Yeah.
Someone who's in Russia told me only today. She said to me the Kozyrev mirrors are being used in healing as a healing modality in different areas in Russia. It's just we don't ever hear about it because we're not in Russia. So
What goes on in Russia?
And is that regressing people at all? Are they using that to regress people to regressing the body, Hamish?
yeah, among other things. Yeah,
Yeah.
regressing, but also like kind of like there's a chance that you can regress the body back to an original blueprint in a way. So you can regress the trauma and the implants off you in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like an idea of like a really bootstrapped med bed, kind of. But
Yeah.
you also get all these crazy, we would call them superhuman abilities, but they're just human abilities, right? The telekinesis, the
Yeah.
whatever it is, talking from mind to mind with people, that able to predict the future, knowing what went on in the past when you have no knowledge of it, like all of that stuff. That
Yeah.
just in most people who didn't completely melt into a puddle, because some people that went into those mirror rooms, they just exploded. Like it wasn't pretty. But the people that it worked well for, all these abilities switched on in them all of a sudden. So it's
Well,
like,
that's fascinating. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for, reminding us about that. So, wow. I was just thinking about the silver bullet again in Montauk, where they sent me to travel forward in time to look at different potentialities, right? When I was
Mm.
very small, a lot of trauma involved with that, but they also, it's how they regressed me and why I was able to return, was through the silver bullet could, forward fast into the future and slow it down, slow the torsion fields and all the electrogravitics down. And it regresses the body and it
Yeah.
removes all the trauma. So yeah, and this was back in the late 70s. So yeah.
When you look at diagrams of the Cozy Rev mirrors, from the
Mm.
outside, it looks like a silver bullet. It looks like a hot water heater with a cap on top. Some they had open tops as well, but some of them were fully enclosed,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
and they were made of aluminium and copper and like silvery stuff. So I mean, as soon as you
Mm.
said silver bullet, I went, yeah, well, I've seen one diagram of a Cozy Rev mirror that looks
Maybe
exactly
I need to look
silver
at this
bullet.
again. Maybe Alicia, will you guys put a link in the description for people? It might be
Yeah,
interesting, a little rabbit hole for folks to go down.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, wow, we've gone 8 regression, fully healed, and that's what I've been shown is that's the times that we're moving into, whether it's through technology, whether it's through the energies and the frequencies that are coming in. But we have to do the work to get us primed so that we restore not only our physical body, we restore back to our original blueprint. We restore our right relationships to come into union first and foremost with ourselves, to come into coupling. I believe that every person on this planet is going to come into their divine partnership, because I saw it. I saw it in my visions. I've seen it forever. It's that power of love that we unlock each other. And I've heard you, Rebecca, say this, that when you've been trauma bonded in the programs, there's a reason for that, because when you start the healing process, you unlock each other in ways that is profound.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and the restoration of the heart and coming back into home within the heart. The heart is where everything lies. It's the infinite potential that we have as human beings to love, to be loved, to feel love, to express love, to unlock everything that our hearts desires, and everything. When we can do that, everything that we want beyond our wildest dreams is literally right there.
And on that note, that was beautiful. There's a beautiful frequency with that, Alisha. Really feeling that. Thank you. Yeah, for bringing us back to that.
Thank you. Oh my, I can feel my heart right now.
Yeah, well, and hopefully the audience can as well. Yeah.
Yeah, take that in. I've said all I need to. Is there anything that you guys want to share as we wrap up? I just express my gratitude for everyone who's stayed with us through this.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and I hope this was inspiring in some ways and insightful, and yeah, thank you both for having me. Yeah,
I would say remember that the healing, like, you're already whole. This stuff is attached on you, so the healing journey doesn't have to be stressful, and it doesn't have to be painful, because there kind of isn't a healing journey in a way. You are already whole. You just need to, like, brush some of that crap off. So it doesn't have to be traumatic. And yeah, just that the healing journey is insightful, and it will be a heart-opening experience, but it doesn't need to be traumatic at all. When
you merge consciousness with that. And one thing I'll say to wrap up, thank you so much, Hamish. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you everyone for watching. I believe that most of the key players on this planet have done the work. They are primed and ready. There's just small tweaking of activation, recalibration to come back into wholeness and fullness and expansiveness and love. So thank you, everyone. until next time, we'll be back again. Don't you worry. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Hamish.
Thank you.